We're live, people. We're live. Welcome to another In Motion Football live stream. My name is Alam, and today we're going to talk about the NFC North. Obviously, our resident Bears fan, Murtaza, is in the building. Murtaza, what are you saying?
What's up? What's up, bro? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So usually, what we end up doing here, people, is I usually talk about the offense and the defense first. But being that Murtaza is here, I'm thinking it probably makes most sense for him to kick it off. So we're gonna start off with the Bears, and we're gonna just let you get into it first. So what do you think about the offense going into next year?
Yeah, man. Firstly, it's great to do this shit, and now I'm a Bears fan to kick it off. But make sure if everyone's in the chat, make sure you like and subscribe, support all of that. Um, but yeah, getting into it, man. The best thing I think about this offense is continuity, and we know that the most important thing about an offense and really an NFL team is a quarterback. And we have Justin Fields, who is tagged a running quarterback. He hasn't shown too much passing in his game yet in the NFL, but this is the first time he's had like consecutive years in the same system. His first year was with Matt Nagy. He's an awful coach, and then the second year we were just tanking. So that's like the main thing, honestly. So we added some pieces in the off season. We uh, changed up the O line, which was one of the biggest problems. It was the worst O line in the NFL last year. Uh, we have Braxton Jones, who was a fifth round rookie last year, and don't let that fool you because he had a really good season at left tackle, and he solidified himself against really good pass rushers. Cody Whitehair, who's a very reliable, solid guard, went back to his position and yeah, at guard. But the thing is, we had planned to play Tevin Jenkins over there at left guard, who is a very solid guard as well. But since he's on the IR to start out the season, we you have to put Lucas Patrick back in at center, and then uh, at right guard we signed Nate Davis from Tennessee. Was on a 3-year deal. He was a solid player there. Played in front of Derrick Henry, so he's had some good experience there. And with the 10th overall pick, we took Darnell Wright, who at the time there was still a lot of tackles left in the draft class. The only tackle taken was Paris Johnson Jr., and the Bears believed enough in him to take him there. And the right tackle spot was really an important spot in the team. And they thought Darnell Wright was like a solid plug and play player that you could just start week one and you would have no issues. The biggest addition to this offense was in a trade we got from Carolina, DJ Moore, who is a number one wide receiver and huge help for Justin Fields. Um, we traded him. We traded for him in the number one overall pick trade. We had the number one overall pick, and we traded for him in with some picks. So what he does, I think the biggest thing is like not only he helps Justin Fields, but he helps Darnell Mooney. He helps Chase Claypool because at first, when Darnell Mooney's the wide receiver one and Chase Claypool is wide receiver two, there's a lot of pressure on them. But then they just move down the pecking order, and although that may seem like though they're going to get less targets, but it actually opens up the game for them because most of the attention is going to go on DJ Moore, and everyone else is going to be freed up. So I think that's really important for him. Mooney is, I think, a really good receiver, wide receiver. He plays in the slot. He does most of his work, and he's a very productive receiver. He, caught for over 1,000 yards. So, I think he's a solid piece. Chase Claypool is another guy we traded our second round pick for that, which was the 32nd overall pick in most drafts. That's late. That's the last pick of the first round. So he struggled last year a lot, but he has a big year coming up, and this offense is a very tough offense because the Green Bay offense is very complicated. So to come in mid-season last year was very tough for him, and he had a lot of a difficult time just adjusting to everything. So let's
Yeah.
see what he could do this year. And on Cole Kmet, the tight end, uh, he we drafted him in 2020, extended him, gave him a 5 year, 4 year, $52 million deal. He's a hometown kid from Arlington Heights, Illinois, where the new stadium is being built. Funny enough, so it's the offense is looking good. We had the number one rushing offense in the league last year, and we've added some good running backs. We've improved our offensive line, so with the addition of DJ Moore and continuity in the offense, I think this could be a top 10 offense in the league this year.
Yeah, I think my thing with this offense is like if it's not pretty good, then somebody failed. Like either
Yep,
Getsy or Fields or like it won't be DJ Moore, but like maybe Claypool or something. Like if this
yep.
offense isn't good, somebody failed. And obviously that the reason I say that is because DJ Moore is like an established number one. Claypool, I think, is an established number two, despite the fact that he didn't have the greatest year last year. The thing is like even if he like let's say we're all wrong about him, like he's still a fine wide receiver three. And then if your receiver situation becomes like a 1 and 2 threes, that's not that bad. Like that's not enough to really like stop your offense from being good, right? Especially when you do have the top end talent with Fields and more. So that part of the offense should be fine, especially with like um the upside of like the fact that Claypool might actually be much better as opposed to just being a little bit better than last year. Because I really don't think last year was indicative of the kind of player he is. I feel like we've seen him in Pittsburgh actually show that he can play well beside a very good receiver. And then
Yep.
Mooney as well. Like I think he's more now going to settle into a role that makes more sense for him. Obviously, he's coming off a major injury, so we'll see how that goes. But like that should suit him fine. The offensive line, like you said, like you got young tackles that both have shown a lot of promise. Um, you got Nate Davis, who I think he's like 27 or something. Right? He's off his rookie
Yeah.
deal, so it's like he's a young vet. Like there's still time. Like there's still a lot of years ahead of him, but also like he's not new. Like he's not somebody that you need to give time to. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate with Tevin Jenkins for sure. Interior of the line, like it should be good at like it shouldn't be bad, right?
Yep.
We'll see how good it is, but it shouldn't be bad. Obviously the running room, I think a lot of the running back room, I think people would maybe suggest that like there's no one guy there, but there's three guys that are all going to bring something to the table. Like Herbert has shown that he's definitely a capable running back in terms of like getting the getting the explosive runs. I think Deontay
Yep.
Foreman last year played really well behind Carolina's line.
Yep.
Second half of the season, like no bullshit, he was producing the same as Nick Chubb, right? And it's producing.
Yep.
It doesn't mean he's as good as him, but he was producing the same amount,
Same
right?
level. Yep.
And then yeah, you have Roshan, who I think if you talk to certain people in the draft community, like they would suggest that Roshan would be actually a much higher pick if he wasn't in Bijan's backfield. Like it just kind of sucks for him, but he's actually good. So like I think between those three running backs, that should be good as well. What I wanted to ask you is, what do you think of the tight end room?
I think the tight end room is solid. I think um, they run the two tight end sets a bunch of times. They did it last year. Um, and I think Tunyon is a good addition. I think he was underutilized in Green Bay.
Yeah,
And, he had his best year under when Getsy was actually there. So
yeah.
I think with Komet, it's a very good complementary piece.
That's the thing. So I just recognize here because I didn't actually know you guys had Mercedes Lewis. That's like two Packers tight ends,
Yep.
obviously with familiarity in the offense. And Mercedes Lewis is like a blocking demon, right? So like
Yep.
he's gonna have a role and he's gonna have a purpose on the field. Yeah, that's just the thing, right? Like people can argue, I think, of like what the ceiling is like with this offense, but I actually think the floor is so high. Like, like I have a hard time imagining that this offense is gonna, even in its worst case scenarios, like this doesn't include a Fields injury, but like worst case scenario, this offense should still be like above average. Absolute worst case scenario, right? So
100%.
that's the thing, right? I think this unit it should be pretty good. Um, like you said, I think the continuity in the offense is a big thing because that was the case with Hurts as well. Last year was also Hurts's like first time ever having a second season in an offense going back to high school. So like that shit does make a difference, especially at the quarterback position because like there's so much that has to do with the quarterback position to where like something could be made so simple if you know what to do, but if you don't, then like you have to be Superman basically. So like hopefully Fields has more easy plays ahead of him this year. It's like last year for him to get anything going, he had to basically be Superman and do like some wild shit and carry. But like the hope is that he just doesn't have to do much carrying. He can rely on people around him to get easy plays. And I think guys like Herbert, guys like DJ Moore, guys like Claypool, they should be able to offer that to him.
100%. I think we'll be fine this year if all goes to plan. Like I said, I think we'll have a top 10 offense. Like with the rushing attack we have, the dynamism in this attack, like
Yeah,
it's not it's not just like you're relying on the star running back. No, it's a running back by committee. Like
yeah,
every single like running back offers something completely different. Like Deontay Foreman's just a downhill bruiser. Khalil
yep,
Herbert's gonna get you those explosive runs, and Roshan is gonna be that third down back you could pass the ball to, and then
yeah,
he's gonna take a yard. So, and that passing attack, another secret weapon could be Tyler Scott. He was running back in high school.
yeah,
He's a very big deep threat. Like he isn't the quickest off the line, but like
yeah,
his straight line speed as he extends his legs, like he could run. So
yeah,
that's going to be a very interesting thing, especially with how like strong of an arm Justin Fields has, and his
yeah,
biggest threat really as a passer is, in my opinion, his deep ball. Like he's still statistically he had the best deep ball in the NFL last year, the most
right,
accurate deep ball, and he always puts it on the money. And you
right,
saw that coming from college, especially if you just want to get a quick preview of that, just go to that Clemson game against Trevor Lawrence. They were just throwing bombs out there. So
yep,
he has that in his locker, and that could be a huge weapon. One thing I did want to touch on, though, you said the worst case scenario in the wide receiver room, you have two threes. I personally think Darnell Mooney is the bona fide number two. I think
yeah,
it's Chase Claypool that's the three. Like
right,
I think people like disrespect Mooney because he played for the Bears, but bro, this guy even like his rookie season with A Rob and the second year with Justin Fields rookie year, he put up 1,100 yards, 80 receptions, 5 touchdowns. Like that's a number two right there. That's really solid NFL stats.
Oh yeah, he definitely was like in over his head as the number one last year. Also, I'm just looking at it like if he struggles with the injury being a part of the worst case
Mm,
scenario, right? Like that's it. But that's the thing. Like again, like even if he struggles with the injury, that's still a three to me because he does have that ability.
yep.
Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
heard
like
that. Hear that part.
they're in good shape from a personnel standpoint. Like they have enough on paper. Um, like I said, like if this offense doesn't look good, like somebody failed miserably, and like
Yep.
some major change has to happen. And again, like my eyes are definitely on Getsy in that regard. If that does happen, like I think I mentioned to you, like if things go wrong, I'm looking at Getsy before I'm looking at Fields. That's kind of where I'm at with Fields at this point. Like I do want to see him given like ample opportunity to show what he has because I feel like up to this point he's been given so little opportunity when it comes to that first year, obviously under Nagy, but with him also just being a rookie, right? That's not
Hmm.
really a circumstance to thrive in. And then the circumstance last year with the tanking, also not a circumstance to thrive in. So like with so little given to him thus far, I do want to see him like make sure that he gets a lot of opportunities going forward. So all eyes on Getsy, I think, to make it work next year. Like definitely the pressure's on him.
100%.
You want to get into the defense?
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. This is the bad part about our team. Like, it's the part I'm not confident about. And mainly has to do with the front seven. I think not even the front seven. It's just the D line. Um, I think our secondary is a very young secondary. I think it has really high potential. I think Johnson is a solid cornerback one. He could like shut down an entire field by himself on his day. Brisker had a really good year at safety, strong safety last year. Really impressed me. Eddie Jackson's Eddie Jackson. Like he's one of the best free safeties in the league. Um, Kyler Gordon, he started out outside in the on the other side of Jalen Johnson, but his real position is the nickel, and
Yep.
that's where he's a very physical corner and very instinctual guy. So that's where he played in college in Washington as well. So he's looked really good. He's put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle. So he's throwing himself out there in preseason and in training camp. So I'm expecting big things out of him. The and Tyreek Stevenson, he's the other guy. He was a big recruit coming out of high school, went to Georgia, had some off the field issues, transferred to Miami, and then uh, had a pretty good college career there. And then the Bears drafted him, so he's gonna have some moments like I think he's like a bit too aggressive at times, a bit too physical, which can lead to penalties, especially as a rookie. So teams are going to target him in that aspect. So he just has to be wary of that and be careful of that. So that's just the secondary. I think our linebacker room is extremely solid. Like T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, and Jack Sanborn, and with Noah Sewell as the fourth back, I think that's a really really solid linebacker room, and I have no complaints with that. The only complaints for me come from the D line, and it's a bunch of misfits. Like Demarcus Walker, he was okay at Tennessee. The Bears gave him a couple year deal. Yannick Ngakoue, he's a really good pass rusher, but struggles against the run. Justin Jones is just a vet. He's really a nose tackle, but playing with three technique isn't the best. Andrew Billings, he's I, and then we drafted two rookies in the second and third round, early third round, late second round, in Pickens and Dexter. So really, in my opinion, our hopes rely this season from a pass rush point of view on Pickens, Dexter, and Yannick. So I'm interested to see what your opinions are on this.
Yeah, I think as a whole, it's just like the defensive line is a rough place to be young at because like that's ultimately how I look at it. Like as of right now, like Justin Jones and Billings are number one on the depth chart, but I'm pretty sure that the young players will be given the starting jobs probably at some point in the first 8 weeks, right? So it's just like however good or not good they are, they're just really young. And it's just that's a tough place to be young on the field. Like obviously, like everybody always says, like the trenches are the most important part of the field. So for to not have established players there, like there's obviously a bit of a risk being taken in terms of being good now. But like ultimately, I think a lot of what the Bears did in the offseason kind of did indicate that like it's the year after next year where they really take serious. And like the main reason I say that is just like you needed a corner, you got a second round pick, not like a big free agent, right? Like you need a defensive lineman, you got second and third round picks, not like a big free agent. Like the big win now moves that would have been made are like Edmonds and Moore, and like that's just two guys, right? It's not like earth shattering moves all around the roster. So like in terms of this year, I just look at it like, yeah, that's probably going to be the reason some losses happen is just because you're young on the defensive line. Yannick Ngakoue is going to be like he's going to give you like a base amount of production that you just need from the edge. Cause again, like if your edges are just bad, right? Like that's the other team's quarterback having a nice clean pocket is not a recipe for success, especially with the secondary. While it's good, it's young, and like I feel like last year, Kyler Gordon, he was a player that like he figured his shit out second half of the year, right?
Yep.
Which is normal. So then it's like if Stevenson finds himself in a similar circumstance, then like he's it's hard for a rookie who maybe doesn't like get their footing early to then have to cover for like 6 to 7 seconds. So it's just like that's the thing. The fact that they're so young up front defensively, it's like in a way you could run the risk of having other parts of your defense look worse than they actually are because like if you look at it, the linebacker room is set. Like there's nothing to add there at all. And then the secondary, honestly, like I think is set as well. Like I think the
Mhm.
whole back end of the defense is set. There's nothing to change. They're probably gonna all grow together for the next couple years and be a very good unit. It's just about figuring the front end of the defense out. Um, so that's just what it is. Like I think you're gonna see that probably impact you more depending on how good the quarterback you're playing against is, right? Like if you go up against a shitty quarterback or an average quarterback, I don't expect them to be able to punish your like issues on the defensive line as bad as like going up against an elite quarterback. So your defense might be one of those defenses that'll have like alternating kind of performances of playing really good and then not so good, depending on who they play against. So that's
Yep.
what it is, though. Like again, I wouldn't change anything anywhere in the back end of the defense. Even the depth is decent, right? To have like the linebacker depth that they have, and
Yep.
the secondary too. Like you have an undrafted free agent from last year and like a fifth round pick, so it's like young players that the coaching staff wants to mold. Like it's not bad. But yeah, it's just again with the edge rushers. So Rasheem Green, I think he's on his like fourth or fifth team now.
Yep.
Um, Demarcus Walker, I'm not really familiar with at all. Obviously, I know Ngakwe. I don't know much about Dominique Robinson, but again, just like leaving it to chance, right? So that's something that like if you put the two things together, right, the defensive line if anything like going to be the thing that in like gives the defense trouble. And then I look at the offense, right? Like if anything, it'll be the interior of the offensive line that gives them trouble because like you got 2 30-year-olds there as of right now, and like because Tevin Jenkins is hurt. So if anything, maybe that's the thing that gives you trouble. So like the two the two like weakest parts of the team both being in the trenches, it's just again it's not the best for winning right now, but if you still look at how young this team is, like it's fine because you guys are just gonna like take a jump and then hopefully take another jump next year. So but yeah, just talking about this upcoming season, uh like I said, I think honestly like it'll be very the defense's performance will be very dependent on the other team's quarterback and their ability to understand exactly how to give good players a tough time. Like you could give their good players in the secondary a tough time because of their defensive line. So not every quarterback will be able to do it, but it'll probably happen at some point in the season.
Agreed. Just every just echoing every single thing. Like
Yeah.
it's the trenches really where we're struggling per se. Like the
Yeah.
skill positions, I think we got enough. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely see. It'll be an interesting season. So I'll take us to the Lions now, which is the second team I have queued up for the thing. Um, the Lions, I think, are an interesting case because I think last year people were very unaware of the talent they had on their team. And then they were really caught by surprise, right? So there's kind of this idea that like they have a bunch of momentum that they're taking into this year to get even better. And I do think that's a bit misguided. Um, I actually think they're in a pretty like it's almost like they have the same philosophy to the Bears in a sense where like they didn't really add a bunch of like players that are guaranteed to get you better this upcoming year. They added a lot of young players, which again I
Yep.
think is going to benefit them in the long term. But I actually don't even know exactly how much better they're going to be this year. Like they're going to be better. I just don't think it'll be much. So it's like if we get into the team, right? Like they have Jamison Williams, who I think is great, but obviously isn't starting the season. Him and Amon-Ra is like a pretty solid 1-2 to have. I think the other receivers they have there are actually like a bunch of strange kind of names they have there, like Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds. You got ex Titans, which is wild, right? Marvin Jones, obviously, like he's decent. He'll be fine. Like he's fine for the role, but like I don't even know if he'll have a huge role in the offense once Jamison Williams is back. The offensive line is solid, a really
Yeah,
solid line.
really, really solid.
That'll be a constant strength for them, right? That's honestly I think a big part of just everything they do in terms of Goff being clean, and the running backs like between the tackles having an easy time. So you got Sam Laporta, obviously. I believe he was somebody who there was injury concerns with in the draft in terms of like durability. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Sam Laporta is an upgrade to whoever they had playing after they traded Hawkinson. And oddly enough, after they traded Hawkinson, that's when they started playing well, right? So like whatever he's going to provide as an upgrade, that'll be good for them. You got an interesting running back room where like you subbed out two guys and then added kind of like a similar profile to both players, like Montgomery instead of Jamal Williams and Jameer Gibbs instead of DeAndre Swift. I think they'll get more out of Gibbs than they got out of Swift. I think they honestly might get less out of Montgomery than they got out of Jamal Williams.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure about that one, but
Yeah.
hey, that's what they wanted to do. So, but that's the thing, right? Like, what is going to make them a substantially different team than last year? It would be Jamison Williams if he takes off, which is just like it's not a good start to that. And even like Jameer Gibbs, like he would have to be like the impact player that we envision for his prime, like in year one, right? Like he might have to grow into that player. So that might not be something that impacts them winning games right now. But like if you look at their offense and what made them better, what's going to make them better this year, it's internal growth with Jamison Williams. And then two rookies, Laporta and Jameer Gibbs. Everything else is the same. So again, I just like I look at the offense. I think the offensive coordinator is pretty great, especially as a play caller. He's out of there. This is his last year. So yeah, we'll see what he can cook up. But like they're really leaning on rookies to come in and make an impact day one. And this is just not always how it works in the NFL. There's always a handful of rookies that show up and show out early in their careers, but it's usually not like too many of them. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, if Laporta and Jameer Gibbs show up and just like play like prime Laporta and Gibbs right off the bat, like sure, that's gonna make them
Yep.
a lot better. But that's the thing, man. They're relying on the development of young players, so that might be there might be some ups and downs. There might be some inconsistency. Like I said, they're definitely better, but I think like what were they last year? 9-8.
Something like that.
I think they were 9-8 last year, and it's like what happened was is they were unsustainably bad. Like they were unlucky at the beginning and lost more worse than they should have, and then they were just like on fire down the stretch in a way
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
more than like it was better than I think they actually were. So it's like it evened out in the end. So it's like whatever they were last year, I think their offense is going to be a little bit better. I think their defense is going to be a bit better. But before I get into the defense, what do you think about the offense?
Yeah. I think just echoing what you said, like really, really solid offensive line. Um, Receivers are decent. Amon Ra is really good. Jameson, they had really high hopes for. Hasn't turned out yet. He got the suspension. And yeah, the running back room's decent. I think Gibbs is definitely an upgrade on Swift.
Yeah,
But like you said, Montgomery and what's his face?
Jamal Williams.
I don't know about that one
Yeah, I
because
don't know about that one either. They paid him more than Williams, and I
yeah,
actually am not sure that he's the better player.
David Montgomery just whenever he has the ball, just expect everything, 20 yards and under because this guy never rushes for over 20 like yards in the play ever. He's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he's the opposite of explosive plays. Just get the short yards and keep it ticking. So
yeah.
Sam Laporta, I think, is a decent piece. Um, but again, like where the Lions are trying to go and with this roster, with how they've built everything, is to try and win a Super Bowl. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to do that. Like Jared Goff is just not that guy. In pressure situations, he doesn't deliver, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they had really high picks this draft. Like they had the 6th pick and the 18th pick going into the draft. And I think they could have really done something like package those two to try and either trade for an elite quarterback or trade up in the draft to get a really good quarterback, and like have him sit behind Goff for a year or two to let this young team develop. And by the time they're in like pure win not mode, the quarterback's ready. So I think they should have done something like that rather than the approach that they've gone with. So essentially, they'll be a really like decent competitive team, but they won't win anything or do anything because they just don't have the quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely agree. Like they don't have the quarterback, and like I actually think they were lucky to end up with Hooker in the third, but the fact that they waited that long, like it's interesting. Like I do think people actually like sleep on how much the guy that runs their team likes Goff, because like Brad Holmes was the director of college scouting at the Rams when they drafted Goff, right? So obviously he would have had to have been a big fan. And then he comes to Detroit and then trades for Goff. And then I remember when he traded for him, he was like, I don't look at him like a stopgap. Like it's my guy. And then now you have another opportunity for him to like meaningfully push Goff, and like he doesn't. So it's like I think people are entirely taking for granted that Goff is kind of just there playing football because he got traded there. I really think that he might be the quarterback there for the next 4 or 5 years. So it would be interesting to see how that works. But I'm not particularly hopeful because at the end of the day, the Rams wanted to make a move for Stafford for a reason. And we'll see if Brad Holmes ever figures to do the same for the Lions. We're good to move to the defense.
Yep.
All right, so here's my thing with the defense, right? Like I talked about how with the Bears being weak at the front is a bad thing and it could make things very hard for the rest of your team, right? If you look at what the Lions have going on, um, just to start with the interior of their defensive line, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same as last year. So they drafted a guy in the third round, Broderick Martin, but it's the same interior as last year. Aleem McNeil, I'm pretty sure is a good run stopper, but I don't think they have anything in the way of like a pass rush from the interior, and that's not good. And just generally having one guy that's a good run stuffer is not enough of a presence there. And then if you look at their edge rushers, obviously Aiden Hutchinson is pretty good. But then on the other side, the other pass rusher, they have Charles Harrison, who I think is a player that hasn't really done much in his career so far, but he's starting ahead of James Houston, a rookie from last year who I think got 8 sacks, but he's not starting this year because apparently he hasn't been good in training camp, right? So like I don't know if their plan was for him to start, right? Obviously, first year player going into his second year, you hope that he gets better, but I don't know if that's like a twist in plans kind of a thing or if they expected this, but like I think basically if you look at their edge rushers and the interior of their defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson's the only strong point, and everything else is like good at best. But like a lot of it is, I think, not good enough. Obviously, their linebackers I think will be good with Jack Campbell and Anzalone, and their secondary I think will be good. But honestly, like there's some issues I have with it in terms of like they basically I think they had the worst secondary in football last year statistically. They're running it back with the same safeties, right? So Tracy Walker, obviously he's been there for a while, third round pick in 2018. I think he's solid, but like he was a part of that secondary last year. And then Kirby Joseph last year, third round pick rookie. I think probably a player that gets better, but like still was a part of this secondary last year. If you
Yep.
look at the main changes, the changes are the corners, right? So they doubled down on slot corners with CJ GJ and Brian Branch, and it's like between both of them, I think they'll have amazing slot play, but like you only need one slot corner,
Yep.
right? That'll definitely be an improved position. And then the two guys on the outside, Cameron Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley, like Mosley was good in San Fran, but I I don't necessarily trust that he would be good in every scheme. San Fran is a very unique defense. They have a great front seven. And I don't know if this guy's going to succeed on a team with like a significantly worse defensive line. Cameron Sutton, I frankly just don't think was that good in Pittsburgh. I think he's just like bang average. So it's like you combine the issues on the defensive line with the issues in the secondary, and I don't actually think it works together. And it's like, this is the thing of if I just as a whole talk about this defense in terms of what they added and what they lost, they essentially added a young player, a first round pick in Jack Campbell, and then they added three corners, right? Two corners I don't think are particularly good. Obviously, CJ is great, but like you got a decent bit better, but you're the same thing, and the same thing is probably like it has problems. So now NFL teams are going to get a chance to like basically have year two up against this defense, knowing what it is, knowing essentially what it's doing, have a whole year, having a whole year of tape against it, and then as the season goes on, having more and more tape against it. Like that's the thing about the NFL is like when you stay so similar, you become a little bit more predictable because the rest of the league knows what you are. And that's just my thing with this Lions defense is like, of course, Jack Campbell is going to help, and of course, having a great slot corner is going to help, but the issues in the rest of your defense that have been there and they were there last year and they're going to be there again this year, giving people more time to figure out how to exploit it even worse is just not a good thing. So this is where like I think the same thing kind of goes for the offense in a way of like being such a similar offense again in year two that was good but still had its issues. Giving more people more time to figure it out is not good, right? Like the Bears made a move offensively that makes them a completely different offense with DJ Moore. You can't really look at a lot of stuff from last year. My thing about Detroit is like almost everything from last year is applicable to this year because they didn't really actually substantially change their team offensively or defensively. They're the same shit. The thing that gives them the potential for that major change is Jameson Williams. But we'll see about that because it's just like weird shit just keeps happening at the beginning of his career. My thing is like, yeah, like the talent got a little bit better, but I expect some regression in the way of like teams, better understanding how to go up against this team. And like the average is they're a little bit better. But yeah, I don't hate what they did, but I just like I think people are going to be let down in terms of the big jump that they expect from this team. Um, yeah, I don't think they'll win like a huge number of games more than they did last year.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agreed. Like, I think they have some good pieces on defense, but it's not they're not really great or elite anywhere,
Yeah,
or even potential to be great. Um, like Brian Branch, like he played slot corner and safety in Alabama. I thought like they potentially drafted him to be the safety, but seems as if in this depth chart he's
yeah.
not. So
No,
I don't know,
this is
man.
this is the thing I was wondering when they drafted him. Of like, you have him and CJGJ. I'm sure both are going to play, but I also knew that they liked their safeties because I know they like Kirby Joseph a lot, and Tracy Walker's been there. So the fact that they didn't cut him, I was like, this is weird because I know they like their safeties, but also you should be playing Brian Branch and CJGJ, but apparently not.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Yeah, it's the Lions at the end of the day. No one can expect anything from them. It's they're just a bunch of little Rottweilers. They're just trying to be dogs, but they ain't got that dog in them. It's just what it is.
I mean, bro, they wear baby blue, man. Like, I'm saying, gotta pick a more imposing color.
Facts. You can't
But
intimidate nobody with that.
that's what I'm saying. But yeah, that's what it is, man. Like, I like Detroit because, like, I mean, like, just generally they have a handful of likable players. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Like, I don't. I
Do
feel
they?
like the hype train is like unreasonably crazy. Well, yeah. So what I mean is like I like CJGJ. I like Jameer Gibbs. I like Amon-Ra and Jameson. Um, who else is in here? Aiden Hutchins is cool, but yeah, no, there's still a handful of guys I like here. But like, yo, like I don't. The hype
I
train
hate
is a
those
little
guys.
bit
I
unreasonable.
hate
It makes sense.
CJGJ.
That makes
Like
sense.
him and the Bears don't get along. Amon Ra is a piece of shit. Fuck that guy. Like Aiden Hutchinson he was legit on skates last year from Justin Fields. Like fuck
That's
the
big
line.
facts. But that's what it is, man. Like I think the Lions hype train is unreasonable, and we'll see what happens in terms of how they finish in their division because I think the division is going to be. I actually think it's pretty unpredictable. But yeah, I just the hype train's unreasonable. We're good to move to the next team.
Let's go.
Oh, we got the Packers. So this is my thing with the Packers.
FGB man, FGB.
If anyone was unfamiliar at this, if you randomly joined and didn't know about Murtaza is Bears to the death. So like, very much fuck Green Bay to the death as well. But yeah, Green Bay's offense, yo, like it's too many young pieces. Like again, this receiving core, three rookies over here, and then three second-year players with a quarterback starting for the first time, and then two rookie tight ends. It's just like this is a recipe to go wrong. I actually think that this team is basically gonna like they're gonna however good they are or not good, whatever their level is, they're gonna start below it at the beginning of the year because this is just what happens when you put this much youth on a football field, and inexperience. Like your veteran players, outside of the offensive line, your veteran players are your running backs, and like that's insane. The least important part of the field are where your vets are, and even the offensive line, the whole center to the right side has been drafted in like the last 3 years. It's insane how young they've gone with ultimately, I think, a coach that's still relatively inexperienced. Because I think what is he in his third year?
Who?
Oh, LaFleur,
I think fourth year.
fourth year. Still like that's like young coach, right? he has some years under his belt, but then also just such a young team with a quarterback that has no experience, and then his backup's a rookie too. Like this is an unreasonable amount of youth, and it's just like I feel like it's destined to go wrong, right? At the beginning, at the very least, and then towards the middle part of the year, going into the end of the year, they might start to find their footing. But just my thing is like, do they have an offensive line that's gonna be good enough to get a running game going that's like top 8 in the NFL? Because that's actually what they need, I think, to find their footing. I think if they can turn around and hand the ball off 30 times a game and get good yardage on those runs, they can then work off of that and then like get easy looks going for the receivers and whatnot. And then things could go from there. But that's the thing of just like, I think how they're going to be so dependent on their running game, it's going to be obvious. I don't think anyone's going to feel the need to double any of their receivers. I think people are going to be very happy to play the run. And I think this offensive line is going to have to earn their money. So I expect the offense to struggle out the gate. But I do expect them to get a little bit better. That being said, as far as like the talent that I look at, okay, shoot, we got the Sarcasm City raid going. Shout out to Joel, or Joel, however you pronounce your name. Um, Big up to everybody that's dropping in from Sarcasm City. I'll wrap up real quick and then I'll address the raid as more people trickle in. But yeah, now this Packers offense is not I think it'll get better as the season goes on, but it's not it at all. Murtaza, what do you think?
Same here, man. It's just two packs of ass, man. These guys, just a bunch of rookies, young guys at the skill positions. Aaron Jones declining. His playing time was, you know, decreasing last year. I think Dylan's decent. But it all goes on to the quarterback, man. And it's the fact that, like, I say this again and again, like in 2021, the Packers are offered 3 first-round picks for a declining Aaron Rodgers, and they had drafted Jordan Love the year before. They had to see him a whole year of practice, and the fact that they didn't take that offer for Aaron Rodgers, who was already again declining at that time, shows me that this guy is just not good. And when your quarterback's not good, your offense isn't good. That's just the bottom line. No matter how, I think Christian Watson's decent. I don't think Romeo Dubes is good. I'm interested to see what Jaden Reed does. They drafted 2 tight ends in early, like in the second and third round. So that's weird. Yeah. So yeah, you can have all these like quote unquote weapons, but like if you don't have a quarterback to throw to them, like it won't make a difference. So yeah, they're gonna be heavily relying on their run game. I think their offensive line's okay, but it can be got at. Bakhtiari is getting old, and their line's relatively unproven apart from Elton Jenkins. I think he's really good.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be interesting to see because I don't think they'll be good. Like Jordan Love isn't good. The offense isn't gonna be good, and they're gonna potentially look to move on from him. But like even if they get a high pick this year, and especially coupled with the first round pick they have from the Jets, they could be looking up to move for a quarterback in the draft.
That's true. Yeah, so, especially in this upcoming draft.
Influx of quarterbacks in the upcoming draft as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see.
For sure. But yeah, shout out to everybody who stuck around from the raid. There's 16 of you in the chat here. Shout out to you guys for sticking around. If you're here, make sure you press the like button and sub to the channel. I know some of you might be NFL fans. For you guys that aren't and just want to support Sarcasm City, you see me and Murtaza out here. You're going to see more people from Sarcasm City on this channel talking NFL. So if you just want to support the guys, man, on your way out, make sure you press the like button, sub to the channel. Help me out in the algorithms. And then if you do want to stick around because you're an NFL fan, I've been doing divisional previews on this channel. So whatever team you cheer for, there's going to be a divisional preview here where I very much do this. So we're going to pull the depth chart up and we're just going to talk about what we think about the team. So if you're an NFL fan, get in the chat and let us know what team is your favorite. Maybe we can get some side conversations going on people's favorite teams. But yeah, and lots of NFL content here, lots of the Sarcasm City style content that you guys enjoy is going to be here. So make sure you tap in, people, because lots of content coming up throughout the season. Yeah, so like last aside on the offense, right? So when I talk about the point I made about the running game, right? The fact that they drafted two tight ends high also to me suggests that that's what they understand that they have to do as well. You draft two tight ends that high, and then you have your two running backs being basically the most established parts of your offense. You should be wanting to run the ball 35 times a game. And that's just my thing of like their offensive line is going to dictate whether that's viable or not. If it's viable for them to run the ball that often with good like yardage, then to be honest, easy looks for the quarterbacks and the receivers might open up. But like to your point, right, about the receivers, I think you mentioned that like you don't think Dobbs is good and you're going to be interested to see what Reed is, how Reed is, right? I
Yep.
actually don't think Reed is good, and I'm curious as to see what Dobbs is going to do year two. My thing with Watson is like I think Watson is limited, but like very good at what he does, kind of a thing. So it's like
Oh, yeah,
if your
yeah.
offense can scheme up him in positions to do what he's good at, I think you could get some good production. But like he's really limited. He's like small DK Metcalf, you know, like it's like the way DK basically runs like three routes and he's just a demon at what he does, but like it's not like he has the most diverse game. Like Christian Watson is like much less of a demon, but like he just does like a small handful of things well. So like that's my thing of like you're gonna put him in a position to do a small handful of things if you can run the ball a lot. So like so much of how this offense is gonna perform to me is about can the running game make people's lives easy around them? If that's not the case, this offense is in for a very, very rough year. If that is the case, like I said, they could maybe be respectable down the last 6, 7 games of the year. But it's looking ugly, man. It's looking ugly.
It's like, and bro, I think like it's not even DK I would compare him to. It's more like a Debo, if that makes sense. Like you get him in those jet sweeps, you get him like in those screens,
Yeah.
get the ball in his hands, and he can
I,
make
no, that's
plays
definitely
yards
true.
after catch.
That's definitely true because he has more in that regard. I'm just talking about like strictly when like I
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
him
yeah,
as
I
a
know what you mean.
receiver, I'm looking
I
at
know.
like three routes from the guy.
Yep, yep. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Um, we're good to go to the defense.
Let's go.
Um, so the defense has honestly there's an interesting amount of guys on the roster here, but I think they were fairly good with Jair Alexander, Rudy Ford, Darnell Savage, and Rasul Douglas last year. That's just not like a personnel grouping that I look at and I'm wowed by. Like I know they've played well. It's just something I look at and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe if things don't go so well around them, or if somebody figures them out, you'll start to see their production drop off. But like, yeah, that squad, like Rudy Ford, I think is just mediocre, right? Like Rasul Douglas is cool, he's fine. They're both ex Eagles, by the way. Like what I saw in Philly, I don't think either of them are like particularly great. And like you look at Rasul Douglas, you look at the thing beside his name, P/Arizona. That means they got him off Arizona's practice squad, which was like the third team he was on after Philly. Like I just don't think that this secondary is actually filled with good players. I just think that their good production was a product of like scheme and personnel around them last year. So if you look at that scheme and personnel this year, they're pretty good, like on paper, still that front seven. Quay Walker is just a dumbass, but like I think he's decent at football.
Eh,
Rashawn Gary's good. Lucas Van Ness behind Preston Smith is decent because Lucas Van Ness doesn't really have to play and he gets to be like a super sub the way he was at Iowa, which is hilarious for a high draft pick. Um, Devondre Campbell, I think, is at the end of his career. Like the fall off is imminent from whatever he was. Like that could probably go bad early. Devontae Wyatt's cool. Kenny Clark is cool. Like the interior of the defensive line is okay. Like it's good, but yeah, I don't know. I just the way I look at this defense, at times the way they played last year, I couldn't understand why they were playing well, like to their level. But yeah, I think again, like this defense, they may have a lot of performances go to waste because of the offense. Um, the point I made about the running game offensively, like they have the defense to sustain that type of football team, the team that runs like a ball control football team. The way Washington played last year, the way they scumbagged 8 wins, Like Green Bay, in theory, could scumbag wins with their defense and their running game if they were able to do it. Like I said, with the offensive line for the Packers, I don't know if they can sustain that type of game plan. But I think the defense will be able to pull its weight. I just don't think the defense is actually going to be elite at anything, kind of like what we've mentioned about some other teams. Obviously, Jair Alexander is great, but I don't think there's any other elite player in the secondary. I think Rashawn Gary has promise, but there's nobody that's elite in the front seven. Like they're just a good steady defense, but good steady defenses for one, right? They can give up hope. Like they could give up hope and just like start to not try if they see how bad their offense is, right? And yeah, it's just like I think this kind of a defense is only a couple injuries from looking shit. So this defense is one where I look at like they could be pretty good, but there's a lot of timelines for next year where they're not. So we'll see how the season goes for them.
Yeah, I echoing mostly what you said again. Like they have good pieces. Kenny Clark's good. I don't know about Devontae yet. Van Ness didn't want him. Quay Walker, I don't think he's great at football, to be honest. I think he's
Yeah.
a bit overrated. Rashawn
Yeah.
Gary's good, but like, has he hit the heights he was supposed to?
Not yet.
Not really. Jair's great, but bit overrated. Darnell Savage got benched last year towards the end of the season. So
Was Adrian Amos starting last year for this team?
I think so.
So then they lost the starter, yeah.
Yeah, so Savage, he had an okay rookie season, but
Yeah.
like he's fell off big time. Like he was benched for most of the towards the end last year. I remember there was big stories about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, their defense is good, like okay, but nothing special to be honest. Like they're like you said, like they're
They
good.
lose Jair, it falls off a cliff.
Yeah, 100%. Like those are big pieces, and especially with how I think their offense is gonna be. Like they're gonna try to control the ball, but like teams are just gonna figure them out because they can't
Yeah.
throw the ball. So
Yeah.
I think their defense is gonna be on the field for like vast majority of the game,
Yeah.
and they're gonna tire out, and that's where injuries happen the most. With tired legs.
Right.
So let's see how they do. But yeah, nothing special this team.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like aside from the offense and the defense, something that I noticed that I kind of was a little bit um I guess surprised about and like discouraged when it comes to this team. Have you heard a lot of the gas coming from the Packers players about Jordan Love? Like I think Jair said he's gonna be like a Hall of Famer or some shit, and then like Bakhtiari said something like there's a couple Packers players that had some very exaggerated good things to say about Jordan Love, and I was looking at it like I feel like if they really felt that way, they wouldn't be saying it because like you don't need to like hype something up that's like that is like you don't need to sell a good car type shit, right? You need to
Right.
sell something when it's not good. And it's just one of those things where it's like I don't know if they feel like they have to say these things to kind of like give him a kick of confidence or something, but like that stuff I don't think I've actually ever seen happen in a situation where that shit was true. I feel like every time you hear teammates gassing a player that exaggerated, it usually doesn't pan out. So I heard that and I was just like, that doesn't sound like confidence to me. It sounds like, hey, come on, like like get some energy and get some confidence or whatever. So we'll
So
see what
so
happens.
so the interesting thing behind that. So
Yeah,
early on in camp, like Jordan Love was like really struggling bad, like really bad. So
yeah,
what happened was there was a lot of negative media about him. Like
yeah,
the Packers media was like, we have to, like, fans are getting upset at them, and they're like, we have to report what we see. We just can't lie. So
yeah,
even like the family night they had, like he was awful that game. Like they televised it like to national television, but then they
right,
just had to cut the feed because he was playing so bad
yeah,
against the Packers defense. So they just did that to try and like get some heat off him. Like apparently he was better than before at the end of training camp, but like nothing
yeah.
special still. So everyone's saying that like yeah, he ain't that guy, and we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. We'll definitely see. We're good to move to the Vikings.
Let's go.
All right, so
Well,
last team for this stream, we got the Vikings. Um, the reigning winner of this division and the team that got bounced by Daniel Jones in the playoffs. I think the most interesting part of this offense is this guy. And I know that's really random to be highlighting the backup tight end, right? But they paid that guy $7 million a year. They traded for Hawkinson last year with the plans of extending him, and they eventually did like a week ago, right? But no, with that in mind, they paid a backup $7 million a year. So when I hear that, I'm like, okay, that team is running a two tight end offense. So when you look at Minnesota, you have to look at what they're going to be in terms of a philosophy change towards like running two tight ends, probably as their base offense. Like KJ Osborne, the third wide receiver, is probably going to see less of the field than Josh Oliver because low key, I think Josh Oliver gets paid more. So in terms of what they're going to be as an offense, right? I think they need Alexander Madison to stay healthy because I think they're gearing up to run the shit out of the ball. And I do think Alexander Madison's got a competent back, right? Like I don't think he's his deficiencies are going to hold the offense back from playing like this. But the thing is like Ty Chandler and Miles Gaskin, nah, that's not doable. Like they can't be the people getting all these handoffs in this run heavy of an offense. It has to be Alexander Madison. Um, and then with that being the case, he has very little room for error. Like he needs to play like his flashes, right? Because I've actually watched Madison play because I used to watch Vikings games early, like when Dalvin Cook first got healthy. I used to watch Vikings game because I'm a big Dalvin Cook fan, and I remember seeing Madison sometimes and being like, "Yo, that guy looks like he can play," and like he's never got enough rushes, like a big sample of good runs to make it look like he's that guy as a running back, but like he needs to perform. But it's one of those things where like if he does, right, there's enough in terms of weapons off of play action and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Hawkinson for that to actually be like a competent offense. Because like one thing we know about Kirk Cousins is like he has a lot of limitations, but basically play action, roll out and just throw the shit out of the ball is very much his comfort zone, right? He kind of fails in a lot of other settings. That's the one he tends to thrive in, right? But again, like when the problem with the offense is like when you have such a specific way of everything working, at some point somebody's going to figure that out, and at some point they're going to punish you for it. So like the thing that may rescue the Vikings in that sense is just how elite Justin Jefferson is and how good Addison might be as a number two to Jefferson, right? Like this might be a situation where the uh the receiving talent kind of bails the rest of the offense out. But yeah, I find this team fascinating to make such a change, like with the same coach, with a lot of the same main pieces in terms of the quarterback and the receivers, to basically draft a receiver in the first round and then commit yourself to being like a run first team in this aggressive of a manner. Because paying a backup tight end $7 million a year is an outrageously aggressive move towards running two tight ends as your like base set. So we'll see how it goes. I think this team, low key, might be a sleeper team to trade for a running back. I think the thing with Dalvin Cook is like a lot of people would maybe just suggest why not keep Dalvin Cook. But I think the thing with Dalvin Cook is he's genuinely not the same back anymore. Like I remember Dalvin Cook at his peak, he was not that last year. So like I think as a franchise, they're probably looking to get backs on the up. Like even Alexander Madison, they gave a 2-year deal to. I think if they could feel like they're getting a deal on a running back that's not on his downturn, like they would maybe consider it. But like, yeah, I think this offense could legitimately be a good offense in the way that a Kirk Cousins offense can be good if the running game is good. But yeah, just like it's an aggressive bet on Alexander Madison, and we're going to see if it cashes. Martaza, what do you think?
Yeah, this offense, man, all stems from Mr. Drunk Lord Kirk Cousins.
If I
This
die, I die.
bro, this they're just mid, man. They have an okay offensive line. Hawkinson, I mean, it's a good addition if you're trying to go win it all, especially if you have Justin Jefferson. Addison's, I think, a good pick. He's gonna be really good in the.
He's gonna be better than Thielen. Like that's the thing. Like there's gonna
Yep,
be a jump there in like the threat that they are in that part of the field. We're just gonna see if the other parts of the field allow them to like take advantage of it. But go ahead.
100%, 100%. I think yeah, he's a good route runner. Like the run game's just so suspect, like so suspect. Um, I don't
Yo,
know,
hold up
man.
real quick. Shout out my man Joel with the Boston Scott prop. This is
What?
hilarious. I don't know if you know Joel, but I'm an Eagles fan. Boston Scott prop during an NFC North preview stream is not something I imagined, but like this is so funny. Dog, yeah, facts. Trade a draft pick for the Eagles' fourth running back. Make it happen. Cause yo, look, Boston Scott's a demon against the Giants, but like I'll take a draft pick. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's just they're. I don't know what they're doing, man. Like they should have been trying to draft a quarterback a while ago. Justin Jefferson even came out and said it in an interview when it was the Justin Fields draft. Going into sophomore year. So yeah, big up Joe.
Yo, Joel, make sure you sub to this channel, right? Because, like, of course, I'm gonna talk about the whole NFL because I love football, but there's gonna be like a good chunk of Eagles content on this channel. I just haven't got around to it yet, but like, I envision this channel 25% Eagles, 75% rest of the league. So definitely tap in, my guy.
15% Bears. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Um, but yeah. I mean, yeah, man. This see, like every offense. Whenever I look at them, if they're gonna be good or bad, obviously starts with the quarterback. And when I don't believe in that, like I don't have any nice things to say about them. No
Yo,
matter how good the weapons are, like because they're dependable at the end of the day. If they don't get good balls thrown to them, they can't make plays. Like there's nothing you can do about it.
this is true. And also, like this comment about Justin Jefferson looking like the next star receiver to demand a trade, it's interesting, right? Because aside from the football field, I think what they did off the field in terms of the quarterback situation is actually so shit. Because basically, what they said was they came out and publicly said that we're not going to extend Kirk Cousins' contract. First of all, why do you have to say that? Who needed to know this? Did somebody put a gun to your head and say, yo, what is the long term plan with Kirk Cousins? It's dumb as hell. But like for you to basically show your cards like that, basically the whole locker room knows Kirk Cousins is out of there. Kirk Cousins himself knows he's out of there, right? There's no quarterback that's being like groomed for that starting position going forward, right? So like I just think that like also that dynamic could make the locker room dynamic really weird if things ever get bad in a season. Like if anyone at some point feels like Kirk Cousins is quitting, because this is the thing, like it could happen. Like if things go wrong, a player that knows he's out of there, who knows very well that the people in this organization essentially decided we don't want you anymore for certain, and it's for certain enough that we're going to tell the world, he might not actually like fuck with them anymore, right? These like interpersonal dynamics do impact locker rooms and therefore impact football fields. Like that's a really weird dynamic to have, right? So like it's just, the script writers in the NFL find a weird way to make things relevant. Like if he gets hurt and you have to see Jaron Hall or Nick Mullins play, and like like they realize how badly they need a quarterback, and now Kirk Cousins is gone, but now like the whole world knows you need a quarterback, but you might not pick high enough because you're not bad enough. And the free agency, I don't think the free agency pool next year is that good. I think it's all about the draft. So like they're just putting themselves in a weird position where there was no need to show your cards, but you just did for no reason. So it's just another just like under the radar dumb thing an NFL franchise did this offseason, but that be happening
Yeah, bro. Again, like to your point, free agency, bro. Free agency is never good.
for
Like,
quarterbacks. 100%, 100%.
bro, for players in general, like superstars rarely hit free agency. Like, if you're that good, your team's gonna re-sign you. Like,
Yeah,
it's very rare that like a top level like player hits free
hits free
agency.
agency. No, you're right. You're right.
So,
You're right.
so like you can't really rely on that. Like, it's either you got to trade for one or you got to draft for one. So with them, like they're just gonna be a mid level team. Like they're gonna be like 7-10, 8-9, something like that, right? and that's like I
Yeah.
think the worst position to be in the NFL because you'd
Oh, it
rather be
is.
3-12 than you'd be 8-9 because you're still out of the playoffs, but at least you have a higher draft pick.
I'm looking it
So
up. What was their record last year? 2022 record. Because like was it, so they were 13-4, right? But they were 13-4 while being like what 9-0 in like one score games.
they were 11-1 in one score games.
Okay, so like on merit,
I
yo,
think.
they were like an 8-9 team. You know,
Yeah,
like they positioned themselves to finish have that kind of a record, but then they like obviously got very lucky in games that tend to be 50-50, right? And the whole argument that like yo, good team, because that's what people would say is like, yeah, they're very good in one score games, but like good teams find a way to win. And I would hope that the game against the Giants just completely destroyed that narrative. Like they were not a good team last year, they were a lucky team. So that lucky team this year very much could be like either the same, if better, a little bit better, if worse, a little bit worse. But this is true. Like they but this is the thing is they showed up to the playoffs and they didn't play like a playoff team for a reason. Like they got beat by a team that went on to just be demolished in the next round and shown that that team wasn't a playoff team on merit either. Like
yeah,
not on merit, but like in terms of ability, like the Giants weren't really like playoff team
yep.
caliber. That's the team you lost to. So that's just what it is. But before we get too tough into like the team itself, I'll just quickly go through the defense. And basically, my thing about this defense is like their whole outlook is they have to pray to Brian Flores. They have to pray to Brian Flores that he comes in and the gap in between him and Ed Donatel results in them being a lot better because that's just really what that's all they can hope for. They did not from a personnel standpoint do anything to be much better. They added Marcus Davenport, who as is just like he's okay. They added him as a pass rusher. I think they added Byron Murphy as a nickel corner, who's like solid, but that's just a nickel corner, right? They have a lot of young players. They're starting a third round pick at corner. Um, they're just not a team that's personnel. Oh yeah, they have their first round pick from last year, Lewis Sign, who had a terrible knee injury, and like I don't think he's going to be starting next year. So you have a lot of young players that you probably need more from than they're ready to give you. The only thing, again, like the reason I talk about Brian Flores is because, like, the defensive coordinator last year, it's not just that he wasn't good enough, but he was legitimately awful. Like, he was very bad. So I think Ed Donatel was 65, but in his first defensive coordinator position. So it's just like, yo, my man, you walked on the earth 64 years without getting a defensive coordinator job for a reason. Whoever in Minnesota was dumb enough to give him a job got what they got. They had, universally understood as what was just like a shittily coordinated defense. So the jump from him to Brian Flores is the only thing you can look at and hope for improvement. But everything else suggests that they're just going to be the same, if anything worse. So again, like putting that much faith in a coach making more out of like what exists in terms of personnel, it's a really bad bet. Like a really, really bad bet. So it's like for me personally, I don't expect it to work. I expect this defense to still be not good. I just think it'll be not good for a different reason. It won't be not good because the defensive coordinator is stupid. I think the defensive coordinator will do his job. He'll be competent, and then we'll realize that a lot of these players are the issue. So yeah, the defense, this is the thing, right? Like when I talked about Green Bay being like a two tight end run heavy team, it's like at least I think they could have the defense to support it if everything like breaks perfectly, right? I actually don't think Minnesota has the defense to support that shit anyways. So they very well might just abandon their two tight end plans and just air the ball out, which then you'll realize why Kirk Cousins is the problem, right? Like this just like there's no cohesive plan for the whole unit, the offense and the defense, to work together in a way that wins football games at like particularly often, right? Like they're gonna just be mid as hell next year. Like that's what they've set up for themselves, and I think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Like, bro, their defense is ass. Let's be real. Like, they got nothing. Like Danielle Hunter, and that's about it. Harrison Smith is 50 years old. Like,
This is
yeah,
true.
they have okay secondary like options, I guess. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, Marcus Davenport, you're not going anywhere with that. Like, it's just mid, like mid at best. That's their That's their
Yeah.
ceiling, in my opinion. Like,
100%, 100%. Yeah. So that's the thing. I'm gonna credit Brian Flores with hitting their ceiling, but their ceiling is mid, right? So it's like they're
yes,
going nowhere,
and
right?
their
They
floor is
just
ass.
Yep, 100%, 100%. So that's just what it is. The Vikings are in a really bad place. I think they probably should have blown it up last year and just like started the rebuild, because this is the thing. Like sometimes organizations are at the beginning of a rebuild without knowing it, and that's what Minnesota is. They're at the beginning of a rebuild and they have no idea. So
Yep.
yeah, we'll get our predictions. Well, our predictions in the chat. I'll type mine out right now. I gotta think through how I want to do this. Fuck. Okay. So I know I want to put the Packers and Vikings at 3 and 4. I have to figure
Okay.
out the order.
Okay.
I want to figure out
Okay.
the order on those two. The thing is like I also have to figure out the order between 1 and 2 between Detroit and Chicago, because I do have reasons to believe it could be either.
Make
But
the right choice.
I am putting Minnesota and Green Bay at 3 and 4. I'm just looking at it though. Okay, I think Green. So I feel good about Green Bay at 4. I feel good about Minnesota at 3. I
Correct.
think it'll be.
Correct so far.
Man, I got to do it, bro. I'm gonna go Detroit at number 1. I might be wrong.
Uh,
But here's
uh,
the thing, right? I think this 1 and 2 will be decided by, if anything, one game. So like it's a toss up for me. I just can't give too perfect of a division for you. Like Vikings, and where we at? Packers. So yo, anybody in the chat who has a divisional preview, throw it in the chat, and we can chop it up about it on our way out. If not, people, we'll get Murtaz's prediction, and then here's what's happening. I'm ending this stream, and then I'm doing another stream immediately after this. So I need to do 2 divisions tonight to be done tomorrow, so that Thursday I can just do content about that game. But I'm doing the NFC South immediately after this. So after I end this stream, I can't do redirects because I'm not big enough on YouTube. Once I end this stream, people, all 15 of you in here, make sure you go to the other stream that's organized on the channel. Tap in there, and we're gonna get into the NFC South. We're gonna sort out that mess of a division, and stay tapped in with us, people. All right, Murtaza, let's get your prediction.
yeah. My predictions are the same as yours, except 1 or 2 and flip. 1 and 2 are flipped. It's not that even I think the Bears are gonna be that good. It's just
Yeah,
the Lions hype is getting too out of control for me.
yeah. No,
It's it's
I
too out
agree.
of control. So I think like people are like last season, yeah, they underhyped them, but this season, just to compensate, I think they're just going overboard, thinking, oh my god, they're this, they're that. Like, I don't
I
see it
agree.
personally.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be heavily contested. I think that'll go down to the wire, and you could see some Lions judge mess that up for them. So we'll see what happens, people. But yeah, that's it for this stream. Like I said, I'm hopping right to the next stream. So hey, the 16 people in the chat, I need all of you to turn up for that next stream too, because we're getting into a messy division. So I'll see you guys there, people. Stay tapped in.